Sudan has a Human Development Index of 0.414, making it the 171st country in the world. It currently has a GDP of $100 billion, with the average person earning $490 per year. Agriculture plays an integral role in the country's economy, employing 80% of the workforce. To be able to finance agricultural development, the Sudanese government borrowed heavily from the World Bank and the IMF. However, the loans were poorly invested, and by 1993 Sudan had become the world's largest debtor. Foreign relations further deteriorated, resulting in EU agricultural credits totaling $1 billion to be suspended. This crippling debt means that the government can only afford for children to go to school for 3 years, thereby allowing the cycle of poverty to continue, with 46% of the population living below the poverty line. Trade embargoes and sanctions have further hindered economic development and prevented free trade. In 1997, the US government imposed a trade embargo against Sudan, as the US believed the government was supporting international terrorism and permitting human rights violations. As a consequence of this, US corporations could not invest in Sudan. Sudan has also benefited in the past from oil production, which previously accounted for over half of the government's revenue. This had allowed the Sudanese economy to grow and was on the cusp of an economic boom. However, for several decades, Sudan had been ravaged by a civil war, which slowed production and prevented development. Thought the most recent civil war has caused a loss of $100 billion in oil production, which is equivalent to 1 year's GDP. In 2011, South Sudan became independent from Sudan, taking with it 80% of Sudan's oil fields. This has resulted in a flatlining economy, combined with high inflation of 16% and a record-breaking trade deficit. Exports in the first quarter of 2012 totaled a quarter of the previous year. In 2012, the Sudanese government opened the country's first gold refinery as part of a strategy to make up for the loss of oil revenue. While the refinery is expected to help, it currently has not increased Sudan's development prospects. Development has also been held back by Sudan's sparse network of roads, totaling 20,000 kilometres. This is 1/20th the distance of UK roads, despite Sudan being 10 times the size. This lack of basic infrastructure significantly hinders the country, as parts of Sudan are only accessible by unpaved roads. This prevents both businesses from thriving and humanitarian access. Therefore, while Sudan has potential to become a developed country, it has been held back in the past and prevented from prospering.